When it comes to all this talk about AI disrupting the arts industry, I can't buy it. But maybe I'm in for a reality check. Because when a company says it's going to use AI to edit and publish thousands of books next year alone, we got to pay attention. Today on the show, how AI could change publishing. I'm Radheyan Simonpillai, sitting in for Alamin Abdel Mahmoud. This is Commotion. Okay, so book publishing is in for a shakeup because there's this company called Spines. They're a tech startup whose plan is to use AI to edit, proofread, design, and distribute 8,000 books next year. And that's not the only way AI and the book industry are colliding. So to talk about what's going on, Jen Sookfong Lee is here. She's an editor and author. And Nathan Maharaj is here. He's a bookseller and works in book marketing. Hey, y'all.
Hey. Hi.
All right. So, Jen, talk to me about what Spines is up to.
Well, they're trying to take my job, but it's fine. What they're going to do is they're going to use AI to edit, I think mostly proofread, actually, produce, distribute, do all the things to produce a book, which normally in like traditional publishing takes between like 12 months to 24 months, depending on who's doing it. And they're saying they're going to do it in like weeks, which is mind-boggling to me. And it's going to cost, I think, like $5,000 at the most, like $5,000 could be less, depending on what options you choose. And they're helping authors get their books to market. They say it's not self-publishing or vanity publishing, but like it really does sound a lot like it, not going to lie.
Yeah. So, and that 5,000 is basically being charged to the customer. And I do feel like we're in an era of vanity publishing, and we're seeing other companies kind of do that kind of thing too, right? Like Amazon and Forbes Publishing and Forbes Books and stuff like that?
Yeah, 100%. I mean, I think a lot of people want to get their work out there and they want to not have to deal with people like me who might say, maybe change that semicolon. I don't know.
Right. But so Nathan, I mean, look, this startup has been around since 2021, but they've only been publishing books for like this year. So what's the kind of stuff that they're publishing?
That should be an easier question to answer than it is, Rod. It's you go to the website. I do this a lot. This is what booksellers do to find out about books. It's really hard to find out what they're publishing. When we do finally find a book, the book is, and I've got to read the title because I got to get this right. It's Biological Transcendence and the Tao by a gentleman named Carlos Andromeda. But if you want to find out about the book, you're not going to find out about it on their website because Carlos Andromeda, the only thing Spines wants you to know about him is how much he enjoyed using their services and what a great deal he got. So the idea, like what kinds of books are they publishing? It's kind of taken me back to the late 90s working at Chapters in Mississauga when I was running the local authors program, and folks would show up with the thing they'd printed, and it was often something similar to Biological Transcendence and the Tao. They'd had an experience, and that's theirs. I love that for them. But they had a book that was that they wanted to sell, and it looked like a lot like what Spines seems to be facilitating.
Yeah. Well, I mean, the title Spines now all of a sudden makes sense because they got nothing else to offer in a way, right? It's like, but I don't know, sorry. But look, the CEO of Spines, Jen, not only says that their plan is to publish 8,000 books, but he also said his goal is to help 1 million authors publish their books. So when you hear that, what's your reaction?
Okay, I didn't know there were 1 million authors that want to publish their books. I get a lot of submissions in my inbox. It's not even close to that number of people. I should just say that. I think it's nice that people want to publish their stories. I think it's nice if you, let's just say you're somebody who's doing like a genealogy of your family and you want to publish that. That would be a really nice option for you. I think that's nice. But I do wonder, what are they going to publish? Because I also used to be a bookseller and I used to run the special orders desk. And every so often somebody would come by and say, hey, I want to order this book. And it would be something like How to Build a Bomb. And we'd say, no, we should not order that in. And so I'm wondering with Spines, where is that accountability? Who is going to say, no, you can't publish this thing that is horribly graphically violent. You can't publish this thing that's like a conspiracy theory. You can't. No one's going to say no, I assume. I don't know. Maybe there is going to be someone who's going to say no.
Well, this does kind of bring up this idea of what your job is. Some people might call it gatekeeping, or others might call it curation, and actually, and in a sense of quality control, and that's what I'm hearing from you.
Well, at the end of the day, our job is to sell books, right?
Yeah.
So we're only going to publish books that we think are going to sell, that are going to make a difference in the market. Spines is not, I don't think, interested in sales numbers. They're interested in getting helping these people make the books and get that $5,000, I think, because honestly, books don't sell that much. If you're publishing like 8,000 books, like they're going to sell how many copies each? I don't know.
Yeah.
10?
8 to a million, remember, 8,000 to a
Yeah,
million. Nathan, what are you making of all this?
So this morning I had to look at their terms. So to address Jen's concerns, yes, they've covered their posteriors pretty effectively with some terms about that they won't publish things that are illegal or what have you. But setting aside how they might filter out the content, the fact is, I think Jen's got it right on the nose that they're paid before anything comes to market. If no books were published, Spines is getting paid. That's a business model that tells you a lot, and it tells you that readers aren't the focus, which is fine. The book publishing world is a long value chain full of people who don't need to be 100% focused on readers. There's other jobs to do, but we should not get confused here that Spines doesn't seem to need to be thinking too much about readers when they're thinking about facilitating authors maybe who submitted a manuscript to somebody like Jen and the answer was no. So if they put some money behind it, they can get to yes, because then the yes is only someone who will accept their money and offer the services to get it to market.
Well, I mean, let me take it away from Spines for a second, because there's another story that came up recently. A bunch of authors who've been published by HarperCollins, they were posting on social media that they got letters from HarperCollins basically asking if they would give permission for their books to be used to help train AI. And if they agreed, they'd get a small fee for that. And at the time, like, we didn't know what company HarperCollins was partnering on this initiative, and now we learned it's Microsoft. And Microsoft has also announced plans to publish books. And while they haven't explicitly said that they're going to be using AI, they have said that they're planning to experiment with technology and to, quote, accelerate and democratize book publishing. So, Jen, like, it's interesting to take this story in with what we've been talking about in terms of Spines. So what do you think is going on here?
I'm not sure that Microsoft is actually trying to make money from selling books. Again, books don't sell that much. And if you look at the books that they've already published, they seem to be sort of things that people on their staff have written for like tech reasons and like that kind of thing, which are not going to be selling in the regular like general market. I think they're using it to train AI more than anything. But I also think that this is a really interesting thing that HarperCollins even did, because one of the things that is a very hot topic in sort of contract negotiations with an author and maybe an author and an agent is AI. And one of the things that a lot of publishers are doing, that a lot of agents are doing, is rewriting those contracts to make sure that AI there's clauses that AI has not been used in the writing of the book, that AI will not be used in the design or production of the book, and various other AI clauses, including something like we won't sell your book to train AI on the publisher's end. So I find this very fascinating that HarperCollins even tried, because anytime I've been in a contract negotiation with an agent and an author in the last 2 years, that AI clause has always been requested. So I don't know how they even get away with it.
Okay, well then in that case, like Nathan, like when we think about what they're using AI for and what AI can even do, what can AI do well in the world of book publishing?
So I came across a really interesting case really recently. There was an author named Anna Gomez, and she published a book with Kobo Originals called Somewhere Along the Way. It's a road trip novel, and she wanted to tell the story of this road trip across America in an EV. And rather than spending a week or however long it would have taken to research what are the charging stations, what would this trip reasonably look like, she prompted AI. Give me how would this trip go? Reasonably, I'm traveling on an EV across the United States from point A to point B. Where should I be stopping? And she essentially used that as a writing prompt. So rather than being taken off the course, not telling the story she wanted to tell because, I'm not good at logistics, she let a machine do the logistics part and essentially give her a scaffold, and she wrote to the scaffold. She made adjustments. She didn't take it as gospel, but she was able to write a story that was reasonably realistic enough not to pull a reader out of it when they go, that's not how that trip's not going to, you're driving across a reservoir. There's no civil infrastructure there.
Right.
So the machine was able to do some of this work that maybe a human mind would have been slowed down, bogged down, taken out of, taken off course. That's a lovely use of AI, I think.
Yeah. Well, I mean, when we talk about like AI, like how this might disrupt our jobs, like as an editor, Jen, are you worried about your job? I mean, you kind of announced that off the top of the show here, but I mean, realistically, do you think AI could do what you do?
No. And I should say I'm like 48. So by the time AI is good enough to do substantive edits like I do, I'll be long retired. So it's fine. But maybe it's going to be faster than that. No, I don't, because I do think that there are things in the editing process. Like I always say to an author, we're not buying your final manuscript when we acquire a book. What we're buying is an idea. We're buying the potential. And only, I think, a human editor can help an actual human author reach whatever the end goal or end vision is for their book. That takes a lot of like emotional intelligence, takes a lot of intuition, it takes a lot of that kind of thing. Absolutely. Do I think AI could proofread a book? Sure. I think AI could probably typeset a book really beautifully, probably design a cover really beautifully. I don't think, though, the job that I do when I sit down with an author and say, what is it that you want your book to do? What is it that you want people to take away from your book? And we work towards that. I don't believe for a second AI can do that.
Yeah. And I even like when you're talking about designing a cover for a book, I think the book designers will also say, no, AI cannot do it the way I do it. I'm bringing heart to my book designing, right? Like,
yeah, 100%. And also shout out to Jennifer Griffiths, who designs my books, and she does a wonderful job. And she is not AI.
yeah. Well, I mean, and Nathan, like as a bookseller and someone in book marketing, like, what about you? Like, do you actually think that there is a shot that you would be replaced by AI? Am I speaking to AI right now? Have you already been replaced? What is going on?
Oh, no, there's sparks and flames start to glitch out. Look, it depends on how we define AI, right? Like automated recommendations, we can call that a version of AI. Collaborative filtering, the sort of take thousands of users who have thousands of books in their library and then figure out what they might be missing based on other people with similar libraries to them. So if that's AI, we've been using that forever. But if we're talking more about LLMs, which can kind of have pseudo conversations about books, I've been using them a little bit here and there. For my job of creating listicles, recommending books, helping people bridge from one thing that they love to another. Listen, ChatGPT is not the world's best bookseller, but it is able to come up with things real quick, like if I like Donna Tartt, what else am I going to like? Right. And I did that this morning, and it came up with a list of books, a list of authors. I actually didn't love any of them, but that list of authors prompted me to go, right, Jonathan Franzen. Forgot about it. It didn't name Franzen. It named a bunch of other people who are also great. But it was like being able to grab a colleague without actually grabbing a colleague and say, what are some things like whatever? And it kind of gets the juices going. So, maybe it'll become an excellent bookseller in time. But for now, it's kind of it's a little bit of an assisted lift kind of thing.
Okay. Well, I want to kind of go back to, what this assisted lift even achieves. Because like we mentioned the terms vanity publishing, this idea of like they're charging the customer $5,000 if you really want to get your thing out there. I mean, self-publishing a book as a gift idea, like I had my kids self-publish a book for their own keepsakes, like that's cute, but like I think in social media has weaned us to be able to get everything out there, and we're all authors and we're all something, and everything we put out in the world deserves to be read and seen. Is that what this is catering to, what social media has fed us? Sorry, Jen, you
probably. I'm just going to say, yeah, I think so. I think that like it's an interesting thing because I used to also teach writing, right? And I do believe everybody's got a story that's worth telling, 100%. But I don't believe that everybody's story needs to be read by like thousands of people. And also there's reader choice here. So what we're leaving out here is if a book is bad, people actually won't read it. Like they actually won't. If it's actually legit, really, really bad, I'm not talking accounting for taste or whatever genre you like to read. It's just that like if a book is legit bad, people will not read it. Mm-hmm. So I think that's what we're kind of missing here. And, do I think everybody thinks their story needs to be told? Yeah, probably. But that's fine if they want to think that.
All right. Well, I got to leave that there. But I don't think either of you are going to be replaced by AI. You're one of a kind to me. Thank you for being here.
What a relief to hear. Thank you so much.
Jen Sookfong Lee is an editor with ECW Press and author of books like Superfan and Good Mom on Paper. She's in Burnaby, BC. Nathan Maharaj is the director of content marketing at Rakuten Kobo and a lifelong bookseller. He's in Toronto.
When you call on me, when I hear you breathe, I get wings to fly. I feel that I'm alive.
I'm Rad Simonpillai, sitting in for Elamin Abdel Mahmoud. This is Commotion. That's a bit of Céline Dion's I'm Alive. One of the many, many Céline songs you're going to hear in Titanique. The musical just wrapped up its run in Montreal, and it's set to open in Toronto this week. The stage production reimagines the movie Titanic and makes Céline Dion and her music the real star of the story. And whenever we talk about anything Céline, we love to call on Thomas Leblanc. Hey, Thomas.
Hey, Rad.
Am I saying that right? Titanic? I'm going to say it forever.
So what they did, so if people are just hearing this for the first time, so we know the movie Titanic, it's obviously the name of the boat, but they Frenchified it in the original production in New York, because that all started, I'll tell you this story, it all started in New York, so they Frenchified it, so they added Q-U-E at the end, like it was a French word, so they're playing up Celine's French accent. So now I say Titanique, that's how I say it. Yeah.
So, and you saw Titanique in this original off-Broadway New York show, right?
And not off Broadway. So, we know Broadway. Off Broadway is a different set of theater. So right now, Titanic is off Broadway, New York. But I saw it off Broadway, Rad. So that means that we were about 80 people in the room. So September 2022, the show had just been workshopped for a few weeks. It was extremely, extremely buzzy. I remember seeing online that Bowen Yang and Matt Rogers from Las Culturistas had seen it. And so I, as a Celine fan, I did the pilgrimage. I went to New York and saw it, and I loved it. And I remember at the time I was like, who will be bringing this to Canada? And Mirvish, the celebrated musical theater company, is bringing it to Canada. So there was one run of shows in Montreal just in the last couple of weeks, and now the show is opening this week in Toronto. Okay, so
for Toronto audiences and anyone who might expect this show later on, what do we need to know about the plot? It's not just an iceberg this time, right?
Okay, so it's a jukebox musical. So jukebox musical is like Mamma Mia. So they're using the existing material. It's not new songs. So these are Céline Dion songs that are rearranged for musical theater, telling the story of the Titanic. So, Brad, I don't know when was the last time you saw Titanic, but it's the story of Jack and Rose and Rose's mother and the captain and all of these people. But the twist is that it's set in a museum, and Céline crashes the museum pretending she was on the Titanic. She makes no sense. The show is full of Celineisms. One of them, for example, that Céline always says when she's performing is "Shall we go for it?" Oh, Céline is always "Shall we go for it?" So the character always says that, and they use Céline's songs, like the songs we know and love, to tell the story of Jack and Rose. There's a new day, All by Myself, Beauty and the Beast, I Drove All Night, I'm Alive, My Heart Will Go On, of course, River Deep, Mountain High. So all the big American successes are part of the show, and it's full of heart. It's very queer. It's so fun for people who love pop culture, and it's starting to be a global phenomenon, honestly, because it's opening in Toronto this week and it's opening next week in London. So this is really kind of blowing up, and we're really fortunate here in Canada to have this company right now producing the show.
Okay, amazing. Well, I mean, look, you were talking about this being a jukebox musical and Céline being in the show. It's like Celine's not actually in the show, though,
no,
right?
So,
we're talking about the persona of Céline. Can you talk about that? Yeah.
She's still in Vegas. So I'm so happy about this. So the actor who's playing Céline in Canada, her name is Véronique Claveau. Véronique is a singer and actor here in Quebec. She's a lifelong Céline Dion fan. She is a francophone. And because of that French twist that's a part of the show, I find that having a French Canadian playing Céline obviously makes a lot of sense, right? The role was initially created by one of the show's co-creator, Marla Mendel, in New York. She was fabulous. I saw her. But to have Véronique play Céline, she has all the Celineisms. And Véronique is actually known here in Quebec for playing Céline in different comedy sketches on television, in the theater, and that's a whole subgenre of comedy here in Quebec, like Céline impersonators, not only drag queens but also actors playing Céline on TV. So I'm really glad the production went for Véronique and are bringing her from Montreal to Toronto. I've read a bunch of interviews with her. I know she's nervous. She's worked really hard her accent. But she's fabulous, and all the reviews have been saying that she makes a really great Celine.
Okay, well now I'm just like thinking how much it sucks here that we don't have a whole culture of Celine impersonators here in Toronto, and we're stuck with Ariana Grande.
It's wild. It's wild.
Yeah. Well, I mean, you mentioned that this is a jukebox musical, and Veronique is great, and you mentioned a lot of the songs. I noticed all the songs you mentioned were songs I'm familiar with, which is to say that they are in the English language. Because I can't tell you, don't hate me, French Canada.
Of course not.
I can't name a single French.
No, actually, I think you're lucky because you have so much more to discover. So obviously, we know Celine, being from Quebec, is she's kept recording in French throughout her career, and there are some songs like Celine also has like the biggest selling French album of all time that she released in 1995, for example. So I think there was one missed opportunity for including a French song in the show in Canada. I understand that it would have been, you need to change the story. You need to find a reason why there would be a French song. I know that Véronique would have been perfect to sing it, so I don't think that's the issue. I think there's a bit of a missed opportunity here. But listen, I think it's still lovely. I think especially when the show came on, I saw it in 2022, and it was a few months actually before Celine announced that she had stiff person syndrome. She announced that in December 2022. And I think there was a lot of people were missing her, in the culture, and people were kind of, where's Celine, what's going on with her? So I think for fans, especially seeing the show, it was a way to kind of be with her without, really knowing what was going on. But the show is not only for fans. I think like any person who is into pop culture, as I said, or is into just like really good musical comedy, will appreciate the show.
Well, I mean, look, you mentioned like that Celine has been dealing with stiff person syndrome, and of course she's actually been performing still. She somehow conquered that. We saw her at the Olympics. Do we know if she's seen this show? Has she said anything about the show?
So that's a good question. So it's hard to know with Celine. She's very guarded. What we could know from social media, so her team has shared a story about the show opening in Montreal, Titanique opening in Montreal. And apparently, from what I read, it was the first time that Celine's World acknowledged Titanique. So some people know some things. Listen, I'm not holding my breath. I don't think she's going to fly to Toronto to see this production. But I think, part of her world know about the show. So yeah, it would be really interesting. Maybe, I don't know, maybe it's honestly, it's starting to be a global phenomenon. There's also a production in Sydney. Maybe they'll get a touring production in the US. So who knows, eventually maybe she'll show up and see the show.
I feel like when you're Celine Dion, you don't fly to the show, you make the show fly to you.
That would be awesome. They should get the whole cast, please, the Canadian cast, fly to Vegas to for the show. I just, if people can go see the show, it's running until January 12th in Toronto. You have to see it just to see how they make the iceberg happen. Right? It's so funny. The choice of song and the reveal, I'm not saying it, it's one of the show's biggest reveals of who the iceberg is and what's happening is absolutely hilarious. It's like I years after I still laugh about it.
Okay, and what did they do with the door? The treasure.
They use a door. They use a door. Not only the door, but they also use, remember in the movie, the car scene when Jack and Rose make love, and then there's a hand that's like slapped in the window. So they recreate that moment. So all the nuggets from from Celine's career, but also from the movie, are in there. So it's really honestly a lot of fun, and the whole cast is phenomenal.
Well, I mean, and just like I only have a little bit of time left, but I also understand it's not just Celine in this, right? I read Tina Turner, not the real Tina Turner, but also like
I'm not saying more. You gotta see it. But Celine has covered Tina Turner, River Deep Mountain High. Some people, I bless them, they think it's a Celine song. It's obviously a Tina song. So maybe there's a Tina Turner presence in there.
We'll discover. All right, thank you so much for this, Thomas.
Thank you, Brad. Take care.
That was Thomas Leblanc. He's a culture commentator at Radio Canada. He also hosts the CBC podcast Celine Understood, the CBC podcast, the Celine podcast, right? Titanique opens in Toronto this Thursday, December 5th, and runs until January 12th. And that's it for Commotion today. Tomorrow on the show, we dig into how AI is affecting people who write for TV shows and movies. You'll hear about the threat it poses, but also about a new push to protect Canadian content. I'm Rad Simonpillai, sitting in for Alameen Abdel Mahmoud. Thanks for listening.